everyone. This video would focus on the difference between adjacent angle and vertical angle. By definition, adjacent angles are angles that have common vertex and share a common side and have no interior points in common. So in the pictures that we have here, this angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent angle. The other word for adjacent angle is that these are the angles that are next to each other. So then we go ahead and say that angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. So they share a common side. So this side right here is shared by these two angles. So if I were to label angle 2 in blue here, so that's blue color, while if I label the first angle, angle 1 with red, so you can see that these two angles, the blue and the red, are actually touching each other at a common side, which is this ray right here. So both angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. In the next picture that we have right here, we can also come up with examples of adjacent angles. So the first pair of adjacent angle for this second example right here would be angle A and angle B because they're next to each other. So they're sharing this common side right here, which is this ray right here. So I can go ahead and say angle A and angle B are adjacent angle. And then I can also say that angle B and C are adjacent angles. I'm just going to write it down here. Angle B and angle C are adjacent angle. At this time, I'd like you to look at the picture and look for two more adjacent angles. Okay, so we go over the problem here. So we have A and D are also adjacent. So I can go ahead and pair them up. So angle A and angle D are also adjacent because they're next to each other. And angle D and C are also adjacent to each other. So that's angle D and angle C. So these are the four angles that are considered to be adjacent. So the first one is A and B. They are next to each other. We also have B and C. They are next to each other. We also have A and D. They are next to each other. And we have D and C. They are next to each other. Now, on the other hand, if we say vertical angles, we are referring to angles that are opposite to each other. That means they are non-adjacent angles and they are formed by two intersecting lines. So these two lines right here are intersecting at this point. So intersecting means they are touching at this point. So we can go ahead and say that there are two pairs of vertical angles here. So then we can go ahead and say that the vertical angles that we have here, so again, these are all adjacent angle. The vertical angles for this would be angle H and Q. So you see the difference between vertical angle. Vertical angles are actually opposite from each other. So angle H and angle Q are vertical. So we can go ahead and write that down here. So angle H and angle Q. We also have another pair of vertical angle. That other pair is angle K and angle P are also vertical because they're opposite. They are across from each other. So I can go ahead and write angle K and angle P are also vertical angles. So pretty much just to wrap it up, adjacent angles means they are next to each other. So they are next to one another. Well, if we say vertical angles, they are across from each other. They are across from each other. Now let's have some more examples right here. Using the picture on the left, determine if the pair of angle is adjacent angle or vertical angle. So we're going to start with the first three and then I will give you time to do the rest of these parts here. So we're going to start with the first one. We have angle M. So angle M is right here. And then we have angle P is right here. So angle M and angle P are actually opposite from each other. They are across from each other, which means that they are vertical angles. So I'm just going to write vertical angle right here. Okay, now let's move on to angle M and angle N. So angle M is right here, and then angle N is right here. And you can see that they are next to each other. They're not opposite. They are next to each other. So we can go ahead and say that angle M and angle N are adjacent angles. I'm just going to write adjacent angle right here. Okay, let's move on to the next pair here. We have R and T. So angle R is right here, and angle T is this angle right here. So as you can see, they are adjacent to each other, which means that they are next to each other at the same time. So they're not opposite, so they're next to each other, so which means that they are adjacent. So I'm just gonna write adjacent angle right here. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try these next problems out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. Angles O and P are next to each other. So that's what we're looking at. O and P, they're next to each other. So we go ahead and say this is adjacent angle. Okay. R and S are across from each other. So they are across from each other. So we go ahead and say this is, this pair of angle are actually vertical angles. Okay, we have S and Q. S and Q are right here. So they are next to each other. So they are adjacent angle. We have O and N. So O and N is right here. They are across from each other, or they are opposite from each other. So they are actually vertical angles. Q and T are right here. They're across from each other, so they are vertical. And the last one here, N and P. So N and P are next to each other, so they are adjacent. Did you get the same answers as this? Good. Perfect. If you found this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya!